What's up? Jamar here, Vegas Sense. New video here. This one is going to be another comparison video between the almighty Prive Aventus and a new clone company that I actually reached out to here recently, and they go by the name of Alt Fragrances. And they were really kind enough to send me these huge, and I mean huge, travel samples. These are actually 13 milliliters. So I'm really grateful for that. I really am. You know, like I said, these are huge samples. So I mean, these are definitely gonna last me a good while for sure. So definitely shout out to Alt Fragrances. And just to get straight into it, what I will have to say is this fragrance here and their version of Prive Aventus, the name of it is Executive Number 26. So this fragrance, when I first sprayed it on, and I have the dry down here, but what I'll actually do just for the sake of this video is I will go ahead and spray it on the back of my hand here. So I'm gonna do Alt Fragrances on the left, Aventus on the right. Okay, Aventus, Alt Fragrances. Now, when I spray these on, I would say that the Alt Fragrances has just slightly less pineapple in the opening than this batch of Aventus does. Now, this batch of Aventus that I'm using to compare to the Alt Fragrances happens to be, I believe, a 2016 batch. I can't remember what the batch code is exactly, but I know it was 16, might have been L something. I'm not 100% sure, but I know it's the 2016 batch. Okay, now I don't have like a 18K11 or 19 P11 or P01 or whatever. I don't have any of those newer, more recent batches to compare this to. So this may smell closer to one of those batches. You know, that's the thing about comparing a clone to Prive Aventus. There's so many different batch variations that can slightly change the way the fragrances smell in the opening, the mid, and the dry down. Now, just after letting these sort of dry down for at least about a minute or so, at this point, I mean, they really smell exactly the same. What I will say is the Aventus seems to be just ever so slightly stronger, at least in this opening spray. Seems to be projecting just a little bit more than the Alt Fragrances. But I mean, as far as smell at this point goes, they're identical. I really can't tell the difference at all, other than the strength. Now, at this point, the Aventus is starting to die down just a little bit, and it's starting to get back to the strength of the Alt Fragrances. Now, one thing that I noticed when spraying these two on the card was that the Aventus, after probably, I don't know, 5 to 10 minutes or so, it became noticeably weaker than the alt fragrances did. And these two have actually been sprayed on for, I think it's probably been about 30 minutes now. The Creed Aventus is completely dry on this card. The alt fragrances, I can still get an oily residue on them. So that's telling me that this is definitely a higher concentration of oils, and it should last longer for sure than the Creed Aventus. The one thing with Creed Aventus that it really doesn't sit well with me is the performance, at least of some of the more recent or more modern batches. Every batch of Creed Aventus that I've been able to own, whether it be a sample or the bottles that I've won within Facebook groups, whenever I've sprayed any of those bottles, the scent didn't last on me more than about 5 to maybe 6 hours at the longest. And it wasn't a thing where it was like olfactory fatigue where, my nose went blind to it. That's not the case. Because I can wear other clones, say for instance, Brasilia Prive or Sensual Obsessions, Creed Aventus, and I can smell the fragrance all day long. When it comes to Creed Aventus, again, after about 5 hours or so, this is pretty much gone, totally away from my skin. Now, just giving these two another smell, I really don't see how you could tell the difference between these. I can't. I really can't. Now, I have another card here that actually has Brasilia Prive sprayed on it. And Brasilia Prive, if you've seen any of my other videos, you'll know that I pretty much hailed Brasilia Prive as like the closest or best clone to Creed Aventus. And smelling it compared to the alt fragrances, Executive number 26, identical. I can't. I really wish I could sit here and tell you all, oh, I can actually tell a difference between these fragrances. This one is about 80% close. This one is about 95% close. No, these are literally there's no difference between these. There really isn't. And so I would say when it comes down to which one of these you want to purchase, it's really up to you when it comes to, whether or not you want to purchase the alt fragrances or the Alexandria fragrances, Brasilia Prive. If we want to talk about price, if you go to the Alexandria fragrances website, a 30 milliliter bottle of Brasilia Prive is going to cost you $42.99 plus shipping. Shipping is normally about $7 to $8 or so. So it's going to cost you about $50 or so, maybe a little bit more once it's all shipped or whatnot. Now, when it comes to the alt fragrances, you can get a 30 mil of alt fragrances, Executive number 26, for $35. Now, as far as shipping goes, what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna try to check this thing out and see what it gives me as far as their shipping costs go. So just bear with me here, because I'm actually pretty curious to know how much it's going to be as well. So shipping is $5 through Alt Fragrances. So out the door, you're paying $40 for a 30 mil. Again, these two smell identical. They both smell exactly like Creed Aventus, and they both smell like each other, the Alt Fragrances and the Brasilia Prive. So if you're looking at a price standpoint, the Alt Fragrances is cheaper. Now, Alexandria Fragrances does now offer the Brasilia Prive in the 60 milliliter size, and that's going to cost you $62.99 plus, again, shipping and everything, which is about $7 to $8 or so. So that's going to run you about $70. At that cost, maybe if you get the bigger bottle through Alexandria Fragrances, the 60 mil, it saves you a few dollars in regards to that, because that would be about $70. It looks like with the Alt Fragrances, you would be looking at least about $75 or so, if you were to get two 30 milliliter bottles through them. So it all depends. They're about the same price, but the point that I want to make here is that you don't have to go out and purchase Creed Aventus at the 400 and whatever price it goes for now retail, and you don't even have to pay the $250 or so that it goes for in Facebook fragrance groups. If you are a collector and you want to have the fragrance in your collection, then I understand that makes sense. Go ahead and buy it. But if you're just somebody that likes to smell good and likes to have a multitude of different fragrances to choose from, but you don't want to basically go bankrupt trying to get these fragrances, then clones like the Alt Fragrances as well as the Brasilia Prive make a hell of a lot of sense. And again, I'm really impressed by this Alt Fragrances. I really didn't expect them to be this good, because I see clone houses a dime a dozen, and I've tried different clone houses, and you sort of get like this baseline smell when it comes to different scents, especially with Aventus. But typically when it comes to clones, they don't really capture the whole essence of the fragrance, and there's normally something that's just a little bit off, whether it be within the opening or something in the dry down. Again, this Alt Fragrances Executive number 26 is identical pretty much from the opening to the dry down. Again, the only difference that I noticed was just in the immediate opening, and this is within like the first minute or so of spraying Aventus. The Aventus, this batch anyway that I have here, was just a tad bit sweeter on the pineapple side. After a few minutes, once it's dried down, it smelled identical. So, I think the choice is pretty much easy for you to be able to make here when it comes to these fragrances. So go ahead and check these out. I'll leave a link in the description to the Alt Fragrances website. They do also sell these 13 milliliter bottles for $20, which isn't bad at all. I would say for 13 milliliters, if you have a ton of fragrances, 13 milliliters will last you a pretty decent amount of time. So these are definitely a good deal for that, okay? So go ahead and check them out. Vegas Scents here. I'll see you on the next video.